I'm the project manager for the city. Thank you all for coming today. I think you're going to like a couple little videos and some fly-throughs that we have. I also have Mike Bennett here from Loomis and Associates. He's the project manager for the design team. He's going to kind of intro a couple different things, but we wanted to let you know we're here to present what we have. There's also the keypad pollings to weigh in on a couple different items. And then all afternoon, we're going to be around to answer questions. So you saw some of the stuff in the hallway. We can talk about specific areas, talk about any of that. So keep thinking of your questions. And at the end, I'll provide my email address up here. Shoot those all in there or write them down and hand them to us. Just touching on where we've been, a lot of this has been going on for a while, including the 2005 three-day design charrette and the Envision Carson City plan in 2006. And then again in late 2014, we had another tweak and brought it to the board for approval in late 2014. And now we're here with the 30% design. So Mike is going to go through a little bit of the overview of the design. He has Steve from Design Workshop with some of the specifics. We'll talk about some of the theming workshop results. And Steve will talk a little bit about materials selection and how that works out. And then we'll talk about where we're going from here and some of the next steps going forward. So with that, I'll give it to Mike, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Danny. Again, my name is Mike Bennett. I am a project manager. I work for Loomis and Associates. We are the design lead. We have on our team Design Workshop, HDR, and PK Electrical. Going through where we've been, real quick, as Danny had mentioned, we started this project, or this process, back in 2005 when the Carson City commissioned some detailed studies of a revitalized downtown. That was revisited in 2014 with a preferred concept. The project that we are presenting to you today is funded through a 1/8 cent sales tax. There's money from Public Works for utility replacement, as well as some redevelopment funds and a private donation for work that's proposed on the 3rd Street Plaza. In February of this year, Carson City selected us as a design consultant to work through the design side of the project. In April of this year, we had the public theming meeting where we looked at different opportunities, whether it was a historic theme or a government type theme, or just what we wanted the general look and the feel of the project to be. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The city decided to utilize the CMAR process, which stands for Construction Manager at Risk. It's a project delivery process, whereas the contractor is brought on board during the design phase to understand the design intent and also help with the budgeting side as we move forward in finishing our construction documents. And ultimately, they would be, assuming we can come to an agreement on price, they would be the contractor building the project. And that brings us to today, whereas we've completed our 30% design, and we're presenting that to you today, as well as it's been submitted to Carson City for their review as well.
I hate to interrupt. You didn't, unless I missed it, your protocols on questions ongoing is your talk, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, I think while we're going through the presentation, the best thing would be to write some of those down. And then you'll have the keypad polling for a couple questions in there. And if you have a specific question, I think write it down and we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
So, yeah. So going back to the discussion on the theming workshop we had, we talked at that time, our intent of the public outreach is to keep you informed, listen to and acknowledge your concerns and aspirations, and for us to provide feedback to you on how public input was influenced our design decisions. So with that, we heard overwhelmingly that the historic theme was the desired choice for what this ultimate look of Carson Street is supposed to look like. And Design Workshop is here today. They're going to offer how that direction influenced their selection of materials or proposed selection of materials and colors and textures, and ultimately the style of what the project is going to take. From a design standpoint, we were given some pretty clear constraints from the previous studies in 2005 and revisited in 2014. We have an 80-foot right-of-way to work with. We have 20-foot sidewalks on either side of the road, the proposed project, in areas with no parking, in areas where we do have parallel parking, and there are some parallel parking pockets that you'll see in the fly-through. The sidewalk narrows down to 12 feet, which again is over double what the width is today. We have 2 5-foot bike lanes, one going each direction. On either side of the road, we have 2 10-foot through lanes, as you can see from the cross-section there, and then a 10-foot continuous center turn lane / emergency response lane. We've taken all these design constraints into consideration. We looked at the latest AASHTO requirements for sight distance, roadside hazards, curb returns for turning movements, truck movements, and so on. MUTCD, which stands for Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and as well as ADA guidelines. And what that allowed us to do is develop a revitalized Carson Street that improves safety for both pedestrians and vehicles. Along with that, we've been able to add 40 additional parking spaces, and again, you'll see we've put the parking spaces, we've clustered them in groups of 2. There's one spot we have more than 2, but in general, we've clustered them so you don't have a situation where a car is stopping in Main Street and having to back up into their space to parallel park. Most of them can just nose right into their space. There's plenty of room to do that. Again, with an effort to keep traffic flowing. We've added 2 bus stops on Main Street, one northbound, one southbound, both in front of City Hall. This concept that you're going to see, I did a very rough calc before I came here. We have about a little more than 110 new trees added. And again, this whole layout provides numerous opportunities for outdoor seating, for public art displays, and just generally increasing the walkability of our downtown. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve to get into what you're all here to see today.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. We were about 12:15 and saw like 4 or 5 people. It was like, okay. And then all of a sudden it was lined up and go, okay, great. How many people came to the April workshop? So about half of you. So the other half of you have no idea what this is about. Hang on, we'll get to it in a little bit. As Mike described, this is 30% design, and what that means is we're about to the point we've established where where the paving goes, the planting goes, some of the seating. We'll be talking about materials later on. Nothing's completely figured out yet. What this workshop today about is your next kind of involvement from the public of the style and materials, and then they will take that to the next level of design, which is really theming it to the fullest that we can. So to remind you, the project area that we're working on is in the red. It's Carson Street from 5th down to William, and then 4 blocks of Curry Street. And, excuse me, 3rd Street, oh yeah, plus the 3rd Street Plaza, which is important. And you can go back. Well, no, you can't. Oh, you did. How did you figure that out? Oh, I was using the mouse. We included the yellow box as a future capital mall project only for the context of its proximity to the downtown and the scale of it. So when you start thinking about how that is going to be part of the overall downtown experience, you now no longer have just a linear Carson Street. You actually have 2 to 3 to 4 blocks deep this way. So it really creates a different experience ultimately. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the long 16-foot rendering when you came in, but if you didn't after this meeting, these next 2 images are on the wall out there. This is kind of what we call 30% design, where you can actually start to see the type of materials, where it's going to be, where the seating might occur. As Mike mentioned, we've made some suggestions about where the parking might go. Of course, some of these, at this point, we'll take these drawings and work with some of the property owners to fine-tune it if they want to do something differently. But by and large, this is just kind of the first pass to make sure that we've got everything kind of in the right place where it makes sense. So this image is from 5th down to Telegraph. The next one is from Telegraph down to William. And so once again, when you walk out afterward, that whole thing's in one piece together. You know, the beauty and also maybe the challenge with a corridor that's as long as this one is do you theme it with one thing? Do you have the opportunity to have different things to express it? what we did is we kind of took a step back and said, well, what are the different kind of rooms or districts, if you want to call it, that this corridor might have? So the first one we came up with as a group we called the park. And this is primarily the government buildings, the open space, which is pretty vast in front of them. And that has that park-like feeling. Across from that, there's a few businesses that front the park, historic businesses, but it's a small cluster of businesses, not a whole bunch. So it continues to have kind of that in-the-park feeling. Then, of course, with the introduction of the 3rd Street Plaza as being one of your event areas, it really starts to create an active node for the community. So with that in mind, it also allows you to establish the theme as it moves north. So this project's confined where it is now, but ultimately, as this is successful, Carson City continues to reinvest in itself, this can go north and south. So this is the park part that starts to kind of inform what might happen as you go north. And this is the image. So once again, you can see, as we illustrated, off the walkway, illustrated here, continuing the green park theme, coming here in front of these buildings, providing some opportunities for people to break out and sit, seating, parking, and you'll see all this in the video when we come up, but just kind of hitting the highlights. Mike mentioned public art. One of the things we have is established places for it yet. So we probably have half a dozen spots where it can happen. And so this next go-around is actually when we start to dial that in. We haven't shown where it goes yet. And of course, that public art, when we talk about public art or the place art type of stuff, that'll come into the play when the money's available for it. So this project is just setting the stage where that can go. The next one we call kind of the district. And below is a couple examples of it. This is the one area where you can actually see that, oh, there you go, that's even better. You can actually see the building face to building face. That's the limited corridor you have. And this next section we call the district is where that happens the most. And it's kind of where you have the higher concentration of your businesses. You have probably more opportunities than the other spots to break out into the patio, under the streetscape with different events. And it actually starts to have the strongest character with regard to that 4 to 6 to 8 block deep. So it really becomes kind of a 4 to, almost a 16 block grid, so to speak. So again, here it is. It includes all of Curry Street, all the way down to here, up to here. And as you can see by the kind of the brownish versus the other, that's more paving and more opportunity for sidewalk, street to be used for different various things versus the green element that we saw in front of the other government buildings. And finally, the last one we call is a transition. And this is after you get past that down to 50 or William Street. And the reason we call it transition is this is the area where you start to currently have businesses that have need to pull off of Highway 50, so they have a driveway off of Highway 50 directly. So that impacts kind of the repetition you can have. But it also allows the opportunity to establish some sort of grid or theming or idea down through that area in the event that those businesses continue to operate they are, or if they reinvent themselves and redevelop, then they actually have a stage or an example of what to build to. So it's really kind of recognizing that that's a much more highly automobile-driven or reliant business section. So we called that the transition because it is kind of as you're going north out of town. And this is just simply showing how that works. And then I think this is what we might have some fun with. So with Ben, so sit back and enjoy for about a 4.5 to 5 minute video. Then we'll come back and have some discussion. Is that working? Yeah. So the opportunity here is a permanent stage of some sort, water feature for the kids to play in during the day, goes down at night. There's a kid having a lot of fun in it right now, going back and forth, back and not sure what he's doing. And then, of course, looking across to the Capitol, you got a view right down there. You bring that park feeling in. If you're wondering what that color in the middle of the median is, recognizing these are the blocks where you don't actually have to turn in anywhere, so we use the opportunity to bring in enhanced paving rather than just having asphalt there. So it really helps the thing feel a little more quaint and scaled down. So just reintroducing the lawn to create that park out to the street. Off to the left, you're going to see shortly where we're going to have some opportunity for some art. We're able to keep all the trees in front of the Capitol, so I think there was a concern on that, so it was important to keep those. So now you're walking down the existing walkway. There's some benches, opportunities for sitting. Here would be a good spot that might have some sort of public art or something in front of one of the buildings. So just creating these little breakout enclaves out that respect some of the historic elements and buildings you have in the community here. So this is now through the district. You see there's a lot more area where there's a little more paving, but more opportunity for businesses and breakout for lunches and restaurants to have that opportunity. Proctor Street. Now, what's important in these designs, this is kind of a flush curve right there. So it allows us to have pedestrian movement that normally you'd have to have people direct. This gives you a little bit more opportunity to cross and minimizes kind of those odd angles with the street crossings. This is what I was telling you about where the buildings are basically on the property line, so they really set that strong building architectural character to it. Then any opportunity we can to bring any of the stuff in the existing buildings and businesses out in front to make it consistent with that. And then this block to the left is where the new parking structure and retail piece is part of the Nugget project. We just left it blank for now. But it'll, once again, reinforce some architectural enclosure there. If any of you guys have businesses along here, we tried our best to make sure the buildings are accurate. I think they're pretty good, actually. And so this is really the transition area where I was talking about, where you still have curb cuts to get into businesses. And you need to respect that, but there's opportunities to enhance that with landscaping, seating. Trees definitely will be part of that to create that continual canopy as you drive through the corridor. And then, of course, these are, like I said, some opportunities. If they come back and someone wants to put in something that then doesn't need the access right off 50, they'll be able to, or Carson Street, they'd be able to go ahead and do something what's similar down to the district area. And this takes up pretty close to the end. So what do you guys think? Think you want to live here? No. So just to be true to Curry, we didn't do the full fly-through with Curry, so we just have a couple snapshots out in the lobby here, as well as this area. Here's Curry and Musser. And then at Telegraph, there's a question earlier about the existing planners at Telegraph. Those won't be touched. If there's imagery that reflects that, or we didn't articulate it correctly in the fly-through, then realize those things are probably, why take something down that works really well. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, so now what we're going to do, the reason you're here today is give us a little more direction on materials. We call materials, that's kind of the paving, the benches, the seating. If you recall last time we did this, we did it more in the context of what do you think is more important? Is it more important to have seating or benching, the type of paving? This is really focusing it down in the materials. And so we'll take this information, start to apply it to the streetscape, and then introduce the theming and the historic theming to that. We had the keypad polling last time and came out with historic and civic were the two that were the most. And then, so where's Vern? Vern came up with the most amazing way of taking those two. He called it historic elegance. So we're running with that. I mean, the history, but it has to be elegance, not Virginia City. This is Carson City. It's a step, many steps above. So keep that in mind as we go through this. I'm sorry, is anyone from Virginia City? Should I, did anyone check for guns? No? Okay, so keypad polling. So those of you who have not used these before, this is your opportunity to weigh in. Before you switch that, I think I reminded the ones that were here last time, and I'll remind the new ones that you can't take these with you because we have them tracked, and they're about $1,000 a piece. So we want to make, no, not really that much, but we do need them back. And also to mention before I forget, the colored handouts you have, after the meeting's over, if you don't want to take them home, you're more than happy to, but if you don't need to, drop them off because we can use them for tonight's meeting. So what you have is we're going to have a series of questions, and you just press the number that responds to what is the right answer or the personal answer you have. So if it's whatever the question is, think about it from your perspective as well as even your family or even people that come to Carson. What we're going to do is the first question is going to come up. Everybody that's, and you don't have to vote. The first vote you do have to vote on because we have to know how many people actually are voting. Because what happens is a question comes up, it'll tell us in the right-hand right-hand corner how many people voted. So let's say there's 80 votes. Then at least when we go to the next question, like I said, you don't have to vote, but we want to get a majority. So I want to close the polling after a certain amount of time. But I'm going to base that on the number of responses I see. So if I'm only seeing 50% people responding, then I'm going to encourage you. But so that's why it's important that that's this first vote that everybody clicks in and weighs in on. When you have this first vote, go ahead and change it. Before you vote, well, I guess 21 already voted, no. It says you have a red light or green light. So when you go ahead and make your vote on how did you get here to this meeting, did you come by bike, by foot, by personal vehicle, number 4 is by horse, or number 5 by transit, whatever you vote on, when you press that first button, make sure your green light comes on. And if it's not, raise your hand and we'll get you a new one. It's not working? Yeah, it should be blink, right. Go ahead and vote. Polling is open. Go ahead and press what you think is your vote. Oh, I know why. We have a little thing we have to put in the computer there. There we go. Now try it. There we go. No. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can vote. If you take a vote and you change your vote, it'll take your vote, your current vote. So it's not going to make duplicate votes. So as always, the youth has to save the day, right, Ben? Okay, we have 59 so far. Did everybody check to see they got a green light when they voted? Any red lights? Okay. So we have, and everyone voted? Okay, so that's what number we're going to be shooting for, 63 on these responses, okay? As best we can do that with each vote. So this is what happened. We closed the poll. 84% of you showed up by car, 2 by bike, 3 by horse. I think, yeah. Danny says he saw you living in Virginia City. And then by cab, 2%. That's good. Okay, how long have you lived in Carson City? Some of these votes, a lot of these questions were from last time as well, but we always like to validate who's in the audience and with each one of these. So, perfect. You guys are fast. 20 plus years. That is an amazing number. Look at that. 54% of you. And then for those who do not live here in Carson City, welcome. Maybe you'll move here. How old are you? And these things won't tell me, only this, so you don't have to lie on this one. I know us guys always lie about our age. Okay, we've got a good range there. 30 to 39 is the 2%, 18 to 29. Thank you for those younger folks for showing up. Why are you attending this meeting? To see the progress of the product, number 1, to share my thoughts on what we call 30% design, which is the next level of design. Number 3, to learn more or you have not attended previous workshops. Or 4, you just don't know why you're here. You were looking for Parks and Rec. And you took a wrong turn. Well, good. For those 42%, we're glad you're here because the other people that are voted because they have seen it in progress, and that That's perfect, because you're here to keep that going. For those of you who are new to the kind of the transition to Carson Street, well, welcome. A couple more questions here. How often do you visit downtown? Downtown meaning the Carson Street, Curry Street area we defined in our project area? Daily. Wow, that's good. Oh, was that it? Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
I'll leave it up.
So this is why you have the packages in front of you. The next thing we want you to do is vote on your favorite material on these images. The first thing we talked about, unit pavers. On your package, you don't have a brick option. We sent the wrong image. So for this first one, even if you, I mean, you can vote from looking at this. This is the best way to do it. But if you need to see it in front of you, this first slide's the only one that you may want to, you'll need to look up here because we introduced the brick as a unit paver.
I don't want to disturb the question protocol, but without the context of cost, doesn't that complicate it?
No. You shouldn't worry about cost. What I mean by that is because if someone said we want brick paving as an example, we will have to have, we don't have to. We want to have accent paving. It's just how much of it. So what we'll do is we'll take back this information, we'll take the underground infrastructure costs, the streetscape improvement, just the roadways, and then also the landscape and aesthetic pieces, and come back and start to dial it in. Yeah, yeah, let's take a few questions before.
I have a question, and for this one and the other one. If I was going to choose these, and especially looking at the first one, which seems to have a lot of holes, who's going to be in charge, or what area of the city is going to be in charge of keeping it clean and maintenance? Because that would make a difference.
Yeah, so currently there's Parks and Rec has a couple hourly staff and part of their parks coordinator position that does some of the litter pickup right now. We're working through with some of the property owners on what's called a community area vitalization district that will provide some of the funds to do such things as power washing and litter pickup and that sort of stuff.
And so that would be for like the trash cans too, where they have the recycling ones and the other ones?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Purple shirt.
On the colors, are we actually picking the colors, are we actually just picking the pavers? And how
Good
they're laid
question.
out?
No colors. Not on the unit pavers. There'll be concrete, there'll be color opportunities. But for this one, it's just the type of pavers because then we'll start to add the pieces together. Hold on. Over there? Yep.
Are these all ADA?
Yeah, they will be. Yeah. They'll have to be. Right here?
Yeah. On number one, how wide is that?
Good question. We don't necessarily, we're not voting on necessarily that piece of it. The banding is what I'd call it, the concrete banding. I think that was just to display how the unit pavers might front up to. Yeah, well, I think, and that could be like the edge of where it comes up to a curb, let's say. So it's not necessarily to say that banding is part of the material, but you will have situations where any of these will come up against concrete in some form. Okay, here.
Is this the sidewalk, or is it just to break up a certain area?
Yeah.
I don't know where this is.
Yeah, the good question. We probably should call it accent paving. So when you go back out to the long, and we can pull a picture up here a little bit, when you go back to the long drawing out in front, you'll probably see like a darker color at intersections, sometimes in front of businesses.
Okay.
Out in front of some of the government buildings, there's a few of those. So right here, you've been waiting.
That was what my context of my, what the context of these papers
Yeah.
would be in. Like what's a meeting gonna look like, which, that could be a different style versus the part, let's say, 30 feet.
Right. Well, that's why we're getting feedback.
Well, I know, but I mean, if
Yeah.
I choose one, I choose that for the meeting, and I choose that for the, I just don't know what the context is gonna be in, so it's
Yeah.
hard to choose.
Well, that's why right now, 30%, it's, we didn't go that far. We went to the point of understanding what should be special accent paving, what should be kind of basic pavement, more on kind of what makes sense and also some of the quantity issues. But then we'll be taking this information, going back and creating that palette of materials, and then would become the final design and have the paving for whatever.
Is that weathered recycled brick or repurposed brick, or is that stamped?
No, that's real brick.
That's real brick.
I don't know if it's weathered. It looks weathered, doesn't it?
Recycled?
I'm not sure.
No, it would be new concrete brick to make it hold like that at base of light, and it's a lot more durable than the old stuff, and it's better.
Good answer. One more at the end here.
How solid are these pavers for stay in place for snow removal?
Oh, they're good.
They are.
Yeah, we do a lot of work up in areas where we get a lot of snow removal, and there's unit pavers all over. So I have no issue with that as far as being a problem. Plus, in some cases, yeah, I mean, it's not an issue. Any last minute question before we vote on this one? So we're voting on, once again, what you think is the best material you'd like to see, and this is to see at those accent areas.
I just bought a pallet from the 1908 train.
We have we're short 9 votes. If you don't want to vote, you got 5 more seconds. We got one more out of there. Paver 2, which was, because it was not the same. Can you go back?
What was paver 2?
Oh, no, you can't. We can't go back because this thing's a forward thing once you start voting. But all right, next one's a concrete paving option. So this gets into some of the materials of what a good portion of the streetscape will be consist of. It's the basic concrete, could be the upper left-hand corner, which is a scored concrete, very little color. You have the one in between, which has more of a articulation of 2 different colors and also some scoring patterns. Number 3, 2 different variations of colors. 4, this is we put this one in here because there's probably some applications in certain areas where this makes sense. It's a form board look to make it look like old wood, but not, but it's made out of concrete. And the 5th is a pretty simple exposed aggregate to some extent, whether it's lightly exposed or heavy exposed.
We just call Fort Virginia City.
Yeah, but actually, we should probably let you know the specific location for this is that we're thinking about. St. Charles Hotel would be one, where there's an actual boardwalk already. It's just making it, replacing that wood and putting in some good stuff. So if you don't vote for number 4, that's fine, because we'll probably use some of that anyway. So maybe put it in that
Question
context.
for you. On number 5, it's permastone, and it needs to be sealed yearly. Number 4 probably has a little bit less maintenance, but have they changed the product enough where we don't have to make sure that the city crews out there sealing those surfaces yearly?
The number 5 is not an application on top. It would be regular concrete, and Jeff, you could probably explain it better than I can, but regular concrete, we wash the cream off the top so it leaves the exposed aggregate.
So it's exposed aggregate from
Yes.
the concrete. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
You guys ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, we're closing it.
Number 3 is 31%. Number 1's 5%. New 17%.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a black and white version. Okay, wall types. Now this, keep in mind, this historic elegance feeling. All right, this is where now we're going vertical with things. There's some ways to use the materials differently. There's a couple of walls you'll probably already recognize, at least number 2, 4, and 6. So 1, 3, and 5 are kind of other suggestions that start to mimic some of those curved walls, as well as they can also be the rectangular planters. They could be a number of things. Couple quick questions.
You may mention that, like the Telegraph Square planters, if that is there and it doesn't get picked, the planter, are you going to redo and rebuild those planters?
No.
Or those stay as they are?
No, those stay there. Yeah.
I don't think the skateboarder demographic is well represented here today. I think they're gonna love some of those walls.
Well, there's things we can do with that. We'll have to we have to deal with that in any location. You probably have less skateboarders, but one's enough. So, yeah, let's see what you guys think.
was 13%. 2, 16%.
Number 1 and 6 seem to be popular.
2%.
Okay. Next, we're going on what we call pedestrian buffers. Let me explain a little bit what this means. There's areas in which the sidewalk's going to go right up to the curb. There's areas where you're walking into an intersection and you have to make sure you protect the pedestrian. And there's obviously opportunities to really enhance areas by using these to define pedestrian areas. So with that in mind, the 3 on the top or the 2 up to upper left are more landscape solutions to deal with that. And once again, just that if one wins, it doesn't mean the rest aren't being considered. That's with all that we just saw. It's just that the majority gives us a direction. You recognize number 3, number 4, and number 5 down here. That's where we're saying you're probably doing that boardwalk concrete stuff in place of this wood. So that's the application I was describing earlier. But these are just methods to hopefully keep, to provide more landscaping as well as some safety to pedestrians. And there's a question before.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that first 1 through 4 are actually like traffic barriers. Number 5 is actually a surface that we've already voted on.
No, we're talking about here.
Voting on, what I'm asking is, are we voting on bringing the fences back?
Yes.
No.
That's
Not
clarification.
bringing the fences back, just pedestrian safety elements.
Yeah, so we're not going to line the thing with fences, but there may be opportunities where you want to provide some safety, like a little enclave. So you might have a small piece of fence that does that.
Okay, so
It's
that
not
is
going to
not-
take, we're not going back to where we were before. So thanks for the clarification. That's answered your question, didn't it?
Yeah. So we want to talk about the sidewalks.
While we're waiting for the poll, on that picture 5, was one of the main areas where there's an elevation difference.
We'll have to do with ramps and stairs? Yeah, we'll have to. Okay, 5 seconds, we're closing the polls. Okay, poll is closed. Okay, next one is the bike rack. Now, a couple of things on the bike rack. We're not talking about the design of this or the actual emblem, because we can come back and use a theme to make that different or make that different. We're talking about the type of the rack. So something like that is a pretty obvious, simple one. This one's a pole with some sort of something on it. This is a different thing, could have a theme. This one you already know, it's around town. And this one's another fairly common one that you see in the community, and you have a question here.
I have a question. I want to know how many bikes can attach, because the yellow one, not that many. I run the farmer's market, and we have the bike muscle powered valet. We get a lot of bikes. So my question would be, how many bikes can attach to 3? How many to 2? How many to 1? And how many to 5, approximately?
Well, I can tell you these are designed for 1 bike per hoop.
So 4.
Yeah. But I mean, 4 in that picture. You may have 10 of these or 1 of them. So it's not necessarily you're voting for 4 bikes versus 1 bike.
All righty, and the next,
Yeah.
and the next?
This is 1. This you could probably lock one of both ends, as long as there's space and it's not impeding the sidewalk. So it's the location of that's going to dictate that. This one, you know better than I do. And this one you probably get, what is it, Ben? 1, 2, 3? If you go that way, else you get 2. It really depends how that first person locks their bike. If someone comes up and locks it this way, then the rest of you guys are kind of have a hard time. So we almost have to have little instructions. Did that answer the question?
Right, but so you're saying if we vote for 1 or we vote for 5, or we vote for 3, there could be more than just 4 there?
Right,
There could be
or less,
10.
yeah. There could be more or less depending on the location. So if I owned a bike shop, I'd probably have a lot more bike racks out in front.
Okay, so you're not just talking about one location on the
Right.
street corner?
Yeah, there'll be multiple locations. Question?
Would that delete the option of some sort of public art?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Nope. Good question. Question was, does this in place of public art? No, this is in addition to. You guys ready to vote? Okay, 5 seconds, we're going to close this one down. Okay, closed. Okay, next one, we're going to talk about trash receptacles. Don't think about think about the form, not necessarily the color or some of the graphics. Like, for instance, this could be, once again, we can get a theming around that. This obviously is one already in town. We all do, keep in mind, we do have to work with the Parks and Rec to make sure whatever we come up with is very easy to maintain and emptying all that on that type of stuff. So again, it's a form and the shape and realizing we can put some dress it up a bit. Question in the back first?
Number 6 offers recycling. The other options, would it be sorted to recycle through those as well?
I would hope so, but we'd have to work with Parks because I don't know how you guys do with recycling or not. Do you have any recycling in town now? Yeah, let me just have a show of hands. How many people, without voting, I mean, we'll still vote on this, but how many would be interested in seeing recycling in the town wherever we put trash? Okay, so that doesn't mean you still can't vote for this. I know you love the green with the tree on it, right? No, so with that in mind, you don't have to vote for that one if you think we should be recycling. We just kind of took a show of hands and people are interested in seeing that.
From a public works standpoint, is there one that's better so that people aren't taking their trash from their house and putting it in one with a bigger opening?
Yeah, it's called surveillance cameras. No, I'm just-
But, you know, number 2, you could
Yeah.
cram a whole lot more into. And
Oh, I see what
so
you're
just
saying.
wondered,
So it restricts them from shoving that big black bag down.
correct. Or just the
That's a
grocery
good,
sack.
I never had that question before. That's a good thing to think about.
See, number 4, you'd be able to do that too, so I would see that should be a consideration.
Well, keep that in mind when you vote. If you have a concern for that, it would put your decision based in another way. I would just offer that we would probably find a way maybe. If there's one that really, like number 2, if you really like that one, that's a concern. We probably have to keep that in mind anyhow.
Do 1, 2, and 4, are there places for cigarette butts on top, or am I just reading that into it?
They look like it, don't they?
4 started out that way, and then they turned them over, so you can't put cigarette butts in them because they blow all over the place. But the DBA also.
Is that a
cigarette
city
butts
thing?
in corners,
Whether,
so they don't blow around. I think that's why they did that.
I'm not going to take a show of hands on who wants cigarette butts because that's not fair. But we'll have to work with the city on what they want to do on that. But once again, don't vote. Don't let that be the reason you're voting. We can find out more about that later, but not that being a critical part of the design. Okay, ready to vote? We're fooling you. Let me see. I have to go back to my picture. Oh. Yeah, so don't vote for 6. Because it's that recycle one that no one was going to vote for anyhow. But we recognize we need recycling. So if you already voted for 6, you can vote again and change your vote and it'll override your earlier one. So do you want to see the picture? Well, you have the pictures in front of you because we can't go back. So you have 5 to vote from. 5 more seconds. Okay. 1 and 4, we're kind of tied. Okay, last question, picture-wise. So we have some seating options. These are in addition to the walls. The walls will serve for seating as well. So this is really fixed benches that are going to be arranged in a certain way. So you're kind of traditional park bench, so to speak. So there's 5 different options up there. Yeah, again, not the colors. We're just talking about the type materials and kind of how they're constructed. Question? Because they're not wide enough, you're saying?
They're not wide enough, and the way that those little rails are, and that those where the metal is could run away, and somebody had some rails.
Yeah. Good point. Well, material and all that will have to be considered, but these would probably be, again, it's just more the idea of what it looks like. And then we have to make sure they're proper width. These are just examples we've seen, and we thought we might be appropriate to look at within the context of Carson City.
In some urban areas, benches have become great places for folks to take naps. Mitigate spikes.
Right. Yeah, so if you're concerned about people taking naps, me included, I might want.
So basically what we're looking at here is a conceptual idea and not ADA, not burning legs, not any of this stuff.
Right.
Conceptually,
Right.
So conceptually, not necessarily what it's going to actually be, but right now just the conceptual view of what we might perceive that we like the most.
Correct.
Conceptually.
Get this man a job.
This one here, you already recognize you have it in downtown now as a frame of reference. These are versions of that. So let's go ahead and vote. Okay, the last image we're going to show you today is recognizing that we're not at the public art part of this yet. We're just identifying locations. We're still going to keep that in mind of all the different variations. And we probably have a long photo library of stuff that has been presented to you before. So this is just to make sure that we're not voting on this today. We're just letting you know that it's still very critical and important to this project in this area. So nothing more than a slide to say, you know, coming in the future when funding's available. About 3 or 4 more questions, and then we are going to wrap it up. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions. The existing trees and the bushes that are in the medium are you going to take out? Is the city going to be able to use those in part of the new landscaping? And the other question I had, are you, the signage that is on Main Street right now, are they going to keep that signage?
Let's talk about those specifics. Let's get through some of these questions. We'll wrap up, and then we'll be up here, so that anybody has to go can go, and then I'll be up here all afternoon, and we can talk about those specifics.
Okay, next question. In the commitment to keep you informed, how do you hear about this meeting? And think about the first time you heard it, not because you probably heard it maybe, hopefully, multiple ways. But what was the first one in which you heard about the meeting? City website, email list, other website. Carson Proud is other social media. If you want to put that one, that's number 6. I just heard a bird whispered that to me. Carson Proud will make sure you're on the next one. 7 is newspaper, digital, and 8 is the community social gatherings. You're one of the few communities where the newspaper is still alive and operating, yeah. Okay, how would you rate the information presented? Oh, no, I'm sorry. How would you rate the city's efforts at keeping the community engaged? So, obviously, the website, other things like that. I know that the city staff has gone door to door on certain businesses downtown to inform people. I mean, the fact that the turnout today is pretty amazing. I still think on a 12:30 on a Monday after a weekend like we just had to show up for a meeting, another meeting, that's pretty good. So there's your 5 choices. All the city employees will close their eyes when this result comes up. Okay, we're going to close it. Okay, how would you rate the information that was presented today? And after this one, Ben and I will close, and Mike will close our eyes, and Paul. Where's Paul? There's Paul. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Last question of the day. While you may not agree with the results of this meeting regarding the theming, so if your vote was never the right one, if you want to call it that, do you still feel the process is heading in the right direction? Nice. Okay, with that, that wraps up with mine. Danny's going to close down. A couple reminders. Return these when you leave if you don't want these. And third, by all means, stand out. We'll be out in front on that long drawing there if you have any specific questions or things to talk about. So, Danny?
Mike. Oh, Mike.
Thank you, Steve. Good job. I just want to provide some closing thoughts real quick. Let me get my notes back. So as you can see today, the purpose of today was to look at more of the global pieces that are getting us toward that final construction documents for this project. Where we're going from here, we have another meeting tonight, another presentation, we'll take more input. And we're going to start meeting individually with property and business owners and show them the plan in front of those properties or business, take any input they have. Danny and I are going to be here all this afternoon to hear from you if there's certain parts of the project, certain parts of the design that you have concerns with. We're going to take all of those into account. We're going to combine all of the input that we get into one database, if you will. We're going to present that to Carson City, and we're going to get some direction on how we want to move forward with all this input and incorporate everything into our 60% design, which is due to be complete by the beginning of September. But before then, in July, we're going to present the project to the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee on July 6th. We're going to present to the RTC on July 8th, and then the Board of Supervisors on July 17th? July 16th. Going through the 60%, moving toward the 90%, we'll have done at the beginning of November. Again, we'll be presenting at the RACC, the RTC, and the Board of Supervisors again. I'm sorry?
What about the Historic Resources Commission?
We're going to the
Yes.
The Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee and the Regional Transportation Committee were identified as oversight committees to try and funnel all that public comment into one area, to have it in multiple areas in addition to these public meetings that we're having.
I'm just saying because of the last one that you guys did, historical had a major part in it. And I would think that with the Kit Carson Trail and all that stuff, you might be able to garner some great information from some of the commissioners on the Historic Resources Commission.
Well, I think what we're presenting right here is more specific design milestones. We have to work with State Historic Preservation Office because we have federal funding involved, and lately that's meant coming to Historic Resource Commission anyways on a separate approval. So I think we're talking about the main milestones for that. So it doesn't mean we're not going to go there. I think we'll just be there in a different context. Okay.
I just want to make a comment. I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission, and I'm asking that this plan come to the Parks and Rec Commission because there is a comprehensive general master plan of the city that talks about parks, parklets, activity plans, and I'd like to see how this plan works with the current plan.
We'll go ahead and work with Vern on that. Okay.
Anyways, just to summarize real quick, our design will be complete toward the end of this year. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is I want everyone to know that if there's some piece that you're interested in hearing more about or that concerns you, we're going to be available basically the rest of this year to hear your concerns, hear your thoughts as we finish it, as we finalize the design. Right now, our tentative plans are to start construction late winter, early spring of 16. Ultimately, with construction be complete by 1st of October in time for Nevada Day of 16. That's guaranteed. Okay.
So we're gonna kind of wrap it up at that. If you haven't already, you can check out Carson Proud. It has a project website, and that fly-through that you just saw, we're going to put onto the website. So you'll be able to get a link to that. It sounds like a lot of people check out the newspaper, but there's also the Carson Proud Facebook where we try and post some updates and pictures. We got email planning@carson.org if you want to send in comments there. My personal email is drotter@carson.org. Write that down. And then city staff, we're all going to be out here in the hallway. Lee Plimmel's out here. We got Vern and Roger. We also have Jeff from Q&D here. A lot of people have been asking about construction, that sort of stuff. He may not have all the answers yet, but he's a good resource there. We got Mike here, we got Steve, we got Patrick Pittenger, transportation manager, Michael Salelga. So all of us will be out here. Bring your specific questions, and see you out there. Quick question here before we go.
Danny, this is a done deal, we have decided that absolutely we're doing this?
The board has approved the concept in November, and then approved that it will be done.